Morning. Latest update on what's happening with us during the lockdown. Pleased to say I'm in a much better mood today, not least because I think I went to bed at 9 o'clock. Just to read and then fell asleep in my specs like Stan Ogden. Richard woke me up at 10 o'clock to take them off and I slept through till 5 a.m. So I feel a lot more like a human being today. Yesterday was an interesting day. Woke up to the sound of builders directly above my flat. They are still working. They're here for the next 12 weeks. I can't for the life of me think that it's really essential work refurbishing that flat, but hey-ho. About 11 o'clock the noise became too intolerable and we realised we still didn't have any bog roll. So we walked right up Notting Hill Gate to Kensington High Street, where we found Wilko was open. It didn't have any bog roll, but it did have an awful lot of other stuff, and there were very few customers. So we wandered around and I bought an adapter I didn't really need and some Tupperware that was very cheap, but I didn't really need that either. The sheer euphoria of being able to be out and doing something that felt normal I think I might actually go back today and take a deck chair and some sandwiches just to cheer myself up. So that was that. We came back then into Holland Park, walked up Holland Walk, where we encountered two street drinkers hiding behind a tree, and both of them, I have to say, were streaming with cold. I don't know whether it was COVID cold or whatever, but they were absolutely sneezing their heads off, and whether they were hiding from the police because they didn't want to be seen drinking in public, or whether they didn't want to be taken into a shelter or whatever, I've no idea. But it was a very strange sight. A bit further up Holland Walk, we encountered a guy with a ghetto blaster, a giant ghetto blaster in his bag that he was controlling from his phone, but the ghetto blaster was in the bag and he was just walking around Holland Park blasting out his tunes. He was socially distant at the time doing it, but it was quite a funny one. And it was funny walking up Holland Walk because when I lived in Notting Hill Gate 30 years ago, Holland Walk was the cruise zone in West London, and there was a sort of nightly ritual really for the Queens in Notting Hill Gate. They'd go first to the Champion till they kicked you out of there at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at weekends. You'd then go to the Gate Club, which was a little cupboard above Ryman's essentially, a very, very tiny gay bar which had a very strange clientele. There was a well-known writer from the Daily Telegraph who was in there every night. There was a Knight of the Realm who ran the proms, who was head of BBC Radio 3, who was also in there every night. And it did occasionally used to get fights, and I suddenly remembered yesterday the night I was in there when a fight broke out, and at the time the bar was run by a man called Bobby, who wore very spangly sweaters. He didn't own it, he just ran it for this other guy. And one night the fight broke out, and I remember the owner just shouting across the bar and saying, "Bobby, Barcelona!" And Bobby put Barcelona on at full blast, and so with Freddie Mercury singing and Montserrat Caballé, or whatever she's called, singing Barcelona to try and drown out the sound of the guys beating each other up and the buffets, the bar stools being whacked around their heads. But once the Queens got kicked out of there, which was usually I think about 1 a.m, they'd go up Holland Walk and take their chances up there, and you'd walk up there and you'd see the little cigarettes in the darkness, and occasionally the police would raid and they'd catch them because they used to climb over the fence and go into Holland Park itself to do their business. Anyway, that was my weird bit of Notting Hill nostalgia of the day. We came back down Ladbroke Grove. We went to two more convenience stores, one that sold nothing but American products, but even they didn't have toilet paper. And then finally, by the Kensington Park Hotel, we found a convenience store that did have toilet paper on the top shelf. So I went and brought the packet down and said to the guy, "How much is this, please?" And he looked at me and he said, $9.99. Well, I'm afraid it's at that point I became one of those people who have insulted shop staff during this crisis, because I said, "You're a fucking thief." I said, "You're a thief, you're a profiteer," and I stormed out in my mask, throwing the toilet roll to the floor. So net result is we still don't have any toilet paper, but you know, life goes on. We then came back here and we played Mr. Boo's new game, which is called the bus checker game. And basically he sits in that window. There you go, a bus just on time. I go on the app, the bus checker app on my phone, and tell him when the bus is about to come. And then he sits in the window on the lounger and counts the number of people on the bus. I mean, it can pass hours. You know, if you live on a bus route, I'd really encourage you to play the bus checker game, because it's going to get you through the crisis. Anyway, after playing that for about 90 minutes, we got a bit bored and we decided to clear out my filing cabinet, which took us a good 2 hours, and I'm sure we're not alone in clearing out cupboards to pass time. And I did make some interesting discoveries, which I think I've got here somewhere. Here we go. Yeah, in my filing cabinet, this is what I found. I found Orville's song. So this is Keith Harris singing my favourite, "I wish I could fly way up to the sky, but I can't." You can. I can. "I wish I could see what folks see in me, but I can't." You can. I can't. You remember it. I also discovered a whistle from Gay Pride. Now this must be quite a long time ago, because it was sponsored by Gaydar. And Gaydar no longer the dominant force in the sector. I discovered my very favourite album, which is the very best of Peter Sarsted, which features my all-time favourite song, "Where Do You Go to My Lovely?" "When you're alone in your bed, won't you tell me the thoughts that surround you? I want to look inside your head." I used to play that at the end of every party I had in order to get rid of people. It became a ritual. And then finally, what I discovered in the filing cabinet is something that is genuinely going to change our day today. And it was a packet of One Direction tissues. So we may not have any toilet paper, but today we are going to wipe our arses on One Direction. Lovely boys. So that was our day. I hope yours was fun. We're going to have a day off tomorrow, because it's a day of rest. It's God's day. It's Sunday. But before I go, I'd just like to a quick shout out to everybody who's sent messages. It's been such fun this last week, having people to chat to and exchange stories about getting through this craziness. So please, what I'd like you to do, encourage you to do, is just to share this vlog if you're enjoying it with friends, perhaps friends who aren't on Facebook, because at the minute it's largely Facebook people. Because I think it could be quite fun in the weeks going forward. And please, if you've been clearing out cupboards or any of that kind of stuff, and you've come across interesting items like Orville's song or the One Direction tissues, maybe you could share them in the comments below. This is what YouTubers do. I've seen them. They point down, share in the comments below. And one final thing before I go is people have been asking where Mr. Boo is. Now, when I record these vlogs, Mr. Boo has to retreat to the only other room we have that has a seat. Now, do you read me? Do you understand? Let's see if we can catch him. Come into here. Mr. Boo,
Yes.
are you in your private quarters again?
Yeah, I'm just doing a bit of work.
He is going to get through this entire crisis on Drag Race. I kid you not. Have a great weekend, everybody, and see you on Monday, God willing.